support staff in Gaza at the moment. Kareem, really good to see you. Firstly, how are they? How's your team?
Thank you, Lucy. For starters, the situation with the team is super difficult. You know, Gaza has been under siege now for more than 20 years. And the situation there wasn't much better before this started. They still had limited access to water. They still had limited access to food. They still had limited access to electricity. People were struggling every day. They would describe every single day as hell. They would say, I'm choking, I'm struggling, I can't breathe. This is what the Israeli occupation has done to them for years. They're not allowed to leave to see their families on the other side of the wall. They're not allowed to leave to get medical attention, you know? And now they're saying the situation is worse than hell.
There's nowhere to say. They feel there's nowhere they can
go. It's worse than hell. Like, we don't have a language for how bad the situation is in the English language. We don't have a word for it. You can't even fathom it. It's so horrible. And I mean, what are we saying? From 4 days into the siege, or not 4 days into the siege, 4 days into the genocide, sorry, my team was already struggling to find food. I had athletes calling me, telling me we haven't eaten or drank water in days. You know, we had athletes that had to give birth under these circumstances as well. They couldn't find medication for their children.
So I think we need to explain what it is that your teams do and the story behind what you do, the Sunbirds.
Sure. So we're the Gaza Sunbirds. The Gaza Sunbirds is a paracycling team based in the Gaza Strip. Like you mentioned, we have 20 athletes, and all 20 of our athletes were actually amputated due to aggressions from the Israeli occupation. What does that look like? Our main founder, Ala Dali, he was shot in the leg during the Great March of Return, along with another 150 other Palestinians on that day that had to get amputated. 32,000 were actually shot. He had to get his leg amputated. He was a professional cyclist. He decided he wants to become a cyclist and bring other people who've had amputees in Gaza onto that kind of platform to get them back to claim their sovereignty, to claim their self-determination as people, stop being victims and trying to change the narrative into Gaza, tell their stories. So the story of the Gaza Sunbirds has always been a story of hope. These are the people that have been most affected by the brutality of the Israeli occupation. They've had their legs blown off, well before the start of the 7th of October genocide.
But they've turned the narrative around, and until this moment they have been able to deliver aid. But is that continuing now? Is there any way, with what's happening now, that they can do
So
their
there's
work?
no aid in Gaza. There's 20 trucks that are coming in. Normally 70% of Gaza's population is dependent on aid. In normal times, there are 108 trucks that come in.
So there's been no supplies?
There's been no supplies, no, none at all, no. My group is a group of para-athletes. We are literally amputees and cyclists. And in the desperation of the moment that we find ourselves in today, they are trying their best, they're risking their lives going out there to go get supplies from the remaining supermarkets in Gaza, buy them, and to distribute them to people. You know, it's insane. The supermarket we bought food from 2 days ago, it got bombed. The bakery we're going to buy bread from got bombed. The car we used to take the aid to the people that need it got bombed. One of our athletes went to deliver parcels on his bike. He left his bike outside and it got bombed. The situation is insane.
And can you actually speak to them, Kareem? What's the situation with cell phone coverage and even managing to get through and find out what's going on?
So the Israeli occupation has been making it so much more difficult to communicate. As you know, they've already cut off electricity, they've already cut off water. That means that Wi-Fi is also out. Cell communication as well has also been dropping. We went from our average calls lasting 6 minutes, and now they disconnect at about 1 minute. But still, we connect with our team members every single day. We've heard some harrowing stories from the last 2 days. 2 days ago was the most intensive day of Israeli bombing. 700 people died. The Israelis have so far bombed 12,000 tons of TNT onto Gaza Strip. The bomb that went off in Hiroshima had 15,000 tons.
So does it feel like, when you speak to people, that they are just trying to get through minute by minute? I mean, even looking ahead is quite difficult at the moment.
Our tagline right now is, we've survived until now. Our other tagline is, we are in the south of Gaza, where the Israelis have told us we will be safe, but we are still getting bombed and we are still getting killed. Our team has lost 50 members of family in the last 3-4 days alone.
And how is it for you watching that from here?
Oh, it's so painful. You know, I'm disgusted by what's happening. This is a genocide happening in front of our eyes.
That word is, as you know, incredibly emotive, and the Israelis, as you know, will be saying that they are targeting Hamas only, that they don't target civilians.
Well, that's simply not the truth, unfortunately.
Planned, military incursions.
Yes, but this is not the truth,
yes,
unfortunately.
Civilians are dying.
Civilians are dying, and the way that the bombs are getting dropped, I don't believe are in a targeted way. Nothing from what I'm hearing on the ground suggests that the bombs have been dropped in a targeted way. Our social media manager, all 5 houses around him got blown up. They estimate 100 people were killed in them. Yesterday, His house was the last one remaining in the neighborhood. They leveled an entire neighborhood. Imagine if we leveled all of Victoria, for example.
So Kareem, obviously the international community are talking in the EU, at the UN as well. If you had one simple message to them, if they could influence the situation at all, or if there was something they could do, what would that message be?
We need to speak up for Gaza. We need to put pressure on Israel to end the apartheid regime that it has the Palestinians under. We are facing discrimination every day, even in the West Bank. Why have more than 80 people in the West Bank died? Is there Hamas in the West Bank? No, there's no Hamas in the West Bank. So why are the Israeli atrocities being committed there? Why have more than 4,000 people been arrested in the West Bank? Why have more than 7,000 people died? There was a lot of fake news going around about babies being beheaded.
There is fake news on both sides, and we have covered that extensively on the BBC. It is something that is a real struggle in terms of the amount of misinformation.
Yes, I agree with you, but to tell you a story from one of my athletes now about babies being beheaded, he told me yesterday a story. He buried his sister and her 2 children. Her sister's body was whole. For the children, they were only able to find the head and the hands. Okay. The hands from one and the head from the other. These are children. They were under the age of 8. And he called me yesterday crying, what did my nephews and nieces have to do with this? What have they done to deserve what's happening to them?
We have just been reporting that the World Health Organization has said that 41% of those people killed are children, because there are lots of young people in Gaza as well, and more than 7,000 people we now know have been killed.
Yeah, and another 30% were women as well.
Yeah, we have to leave it there, but thank you very much.
Thank you,
and I do need to make that qualification, of course, that that it is always denied by the Israelis that genocide is taking place. They say these are strategic planned strikes in Gaza and that they are targeting the militant group Hamas.
But I'm here to let the world know that that's not the case.
Kareem, you've been able to have your say. This is what the Israelis will always say in response to that. Around the world.